welcome to the Digital Signage Today podcast, produced by Networld Media Group. I'm Judy Mottl, editor of Digital Signage Today. Today we get a chance to see a bit under the hood on an amazing digital signage project at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. So it was a project conducted with the zoo along with Peerless-AV. And through Peerless-AV's discussions with the zoo, it was revealed that the zoo wanted to boost its visitor experience as well as provide more engaging content. And just as for background, Peerless-AV designs and manufactures outdoor displays and TVs, dvLED and LCD video wall systems, integrated kiosks, professional carts, and stands. So a little bit of perspective on the project, because this was no small project. The zoo's indoor Searle Visitor Center installation included 4 75-inch Samsung landscape displays, plus Peerless-AV SmartMount universal flat wall mounts, and a 55-inch Samsung display with a Peerless-AV SmartMount universal flat wall mount. So the outdoor installation in the East Gate area of the zoo included 3 Peerless-AV Smart City Kiosks with 55-inch Xtreme high bright outdoor displays fixed to concrete pedestals. Each was equipped with a Wi-Fi antenna and a BrightSign media player. There are also 2 Peerless 75-inch Xtreme high bright outdoor displays with outdoor flat wall mounts. So given all that technology, we're excited to have Rob Miner here today to talk to us about the project and all the challenges and all the lessons learned. Rob is a senior solutions engineer with Peerless-AV, and he's been with the company for nearly 15 years in his engineering role. So thanks for being here, Rob.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for having me.
So, let's just start at the very start. How did the project come about? What was the time frame and the timeline, from start to finish?
The project came to our lab through CDW, basically through the integrator, through the channel, and then directly to Peerless-AV, where Peerless-AV was brought on and then used as a consultative role to help both parties accomplish the overall objective of how to mount these displays, especially in an indoor visitor center, because they're removing the printed materials off the wall and replacing it with dynamic digital signage. How best to put our outdoor displays in locations that are going to be visible and can be updated in terms of content easily, and then the best place to strategically put outdoor displays in order for guests to come up to and utilize for wayfinding as well as for outdoor signage in terms of, hey, the seal show is starting in 10, 15 minutes. Better get your butt over there and go check it out. Or here are the dining plans available for lunch or maybe snacks, as well as how do I get to the bird exhibit or how do I get to the ape exhibit. So they were looking at ways to basically change from printed signage to dynamic digital signage in order to provide that type of material at an instant.
All right, so did it take a year or less than a year to?
Actually, it took just under a year. We had started discussions probably in August of 2020. I take that back. In August of 2023, and we finally got the bid and won in the spring of 2024, and then installed everything by the summer of 2025. It was not this. I misspoke on the years. We finished in summer of 2024, not 2025.
Okay. So is this the first zoo installation you guys have been involved with?
Now, we were involved in multiple others. Our first real zoo happened in the year of 2018 with the Cleveland Zoo, where they were also replacing printed signage, especially for their outdoor picnic areas, with our outdoor Xtreme displays in both portrait and landscape orientation. So we helped them with that, as well as scoping out the entire project for them. And from there, it just snowballed into other zoos, and this being the most recent.
Well, I mean, having that kind of experience is invaluable for a zoo to have a technology company that's already kind of dealt with these unique environments. So this zoo that was founded, I think, back in 1868 is all about preserving wildlife while also educating the visitors. So, given your past experience with all the other zoos, they probably had a similar mission. And kind of, can you talk about how that mission kind of fit into the strategy?
Well, they were trying to look at ways to ensure that the digital signage that's going to be installed would not interfere with how I'd say the landscape of the environment. Because when you walk through Lincoln Park Zoo, yes, you have your pathways that are cemented. You have some gravel or some dirt paths, trails going through to look at the butterfly exhibit or to other types of wildlife. But at the same time, they want it to be unobtrusive, but then also engaging. So, how do you make it seem not as obtrusive into the landscaped environment when you're implementing digital signage or electronics? But when you get into the indoor location, like the indoor visitor center you mentioned earlier, that was something that was going to be indoors. It needed to capture the eye of the guest as they walked up to the counter when they're paying their admission, getting their stroller, or asking for more information. There needed to be eye-catching displays, constant movement of content, as well as for those donor-based needs and gifts. This was something also to track the eye and hopefully entice the guest to maybe donate some money to the zoo and for its nonprofit ventures. But overall, it was a way to try to integrate our kiosks into that type of environment, as well as when we're doing the outdoor displays, utilizing different not different techniques, but different options that are on the Xtreme displays in order to ensure that the brightness levels are not at 100%, that you're able to dim those down during peak times, not dim them, brighten them at peak times,
Right.
lower the dimming at closing times or other times that are, so it's not going to be as obtrusive to the environment.
Right. I mean, you don't want those screens like impacting nightlife in a zoo, because not all animals are sleeping. So, I
Exactly.
was curious, how do you decide how big to go? Is it in terms of the space location you have, or is it in terms of like, how often, what sunlight's going to do in certain environments? I was just curious about that.
For the indoor visitor center, they wanted the entire wall space to be filled with digital signage. So
Wow.
they were using the 75-inch Samsung displays in landscape orientation, and they just wanted them spaced out 3 inches apart, bezel to bezel. So they basically wanted as big as they could go within the price limit or the budget that they had available to them. For the outdoor, it was our largest outdoor displays that they were going to put on the wall in landscape orientation. And it was on a corner wall. So as you were looking at it from the south side, you can see the display on the south side of the wall. And then you'll be able to see the edge of the bezel on the west facing wall. So we were able to give them the two 75-inch Xtremes to go on either side of those walls. But that was above a parking meter and on top of on the wall to the restrooms. So it was everyone was going to notice it based on the content. So it was something that you wanted to see from the viewing distance, as far away as you can get, maybe about 20 to 30 feet away, to catch your eye, to give you directions or for announcements. As for the outdoor kiosks, which were in portrait orientation with the 55-inch Xtreme displays, those were replacing existing, probably we'll call them 47-inch diagonal printed displays or maps. So they wanted something equal to that. Since we don't manufacture 49-inch displays, the only thing we would be able to offer were 55-inch within the kiosk, and that's what they went with. And we were able to put them, though, in the kiosk so it's not as obtrusive or takes up as much space as the original printed maps did.
Right. So since they had printed signage in place, I'm wondering, did you follow that roadmap per se, or was it an assessment done in terms of the fact that digital signage is more eye-catching to adjust where they should be located?
They wanted to try to keep the existing pads or the cement spacing that they had available for the printed maps, but there were two locations where they had to redo, or two locations where, based on their studies, they saw the pattern of guest movement and clustering, that they thought that'd be a great idea to put maps there instead of a different location where the printed maps were at. For example, one new location was at the corner of the Lion Den and the cafeteria. So they wanted to basically, people were getting lost looking for the front doors of the cafeteria, as well as it was a stopping point of people when they were looking at the map, which way did it go? Were they continued south should they continue south from the zoo in order to get to the apes or to the swans, or should they make that right-hand turn and get towards the seals, or go backwards again to see if they can find different types of the four-legged feral cats exhibits. The one that they did keep was was on the pathway to the seal exhibit. So that was an existing pad for the printed sign, and all they ended up doing was retrenching that for the kiosk. And so we replaced the printed with a digital kiosk there. And the other new placement was just slightly off of the main west entrance. So as you entered into the zoo from the west side, you would see a printed map on your left-hand side as you were walking in. They chose to move the map in terms of a digital signage kiosk further in to alleviate the congestion at the main entrance. So you had people walking into the west entrance, stopping to look at the map, which then would cause a backlog or jam or traffic jam of people walking in. Let's move that further in, still keep it off to the left-hand side, and to allow guests to come in. Because also what they saw with that printed sign is the congestion, not only with people trying to find out where to go next, it was also near the main entrance to the Lionel train exhibit, where children were able to climb aboard the Lionel train as it went around a small path.
So the idea of knowing where your traffic is going, where your footprints are, when you're doing a project like this is invaluable with them, right?
Correct, especially when you're looking at wayfinding. We've had the same type of discussions with our other clients and other integrators when putting kiosks not only in outdoor environments, but also indoor environments. When we're doing it with the indoor, are we replacing it where the paper signage was at, or the printed map was at, or is it a different location based on the congestion or the clustering that you saw of your guests to help alleviate that?
And that all goes to improving the customer experience.
Yes, it does.
You don't really want to walk up to the zoo and get jammed into a line, right? So
especially in the middle of summer when everyone's just irritable and it's 90 degrees and sunny.
Right. And you must know the zoo by heart. I mean, you must have like a map in your head.
I'm born and raised south side of Chicago. The zoo is just on the north side, and I've been going to the zoo ever since I've been a child.
Wow.
So and what's neat about the zoo, it's one of the only free zoos to enter in the United States. But you have to pay for parking, but it is a free entry exhibit. So that's pretty much its selling feature.
Right.
That when you get there, you can walk the zoo and run through the zoo anytime you want within opening hours. But it's
that must be. I mean, that must have been a great feeling to work, on a project at a zoo that you knew, and a part of, because, I think many people who go to zoos starting early continue to go to zoos as they get older, and they take their children, so it really becomes another family destination. So the thing with the zoo, unlike an indoor installation, though, is weather, and Chicago and its weather. And I know you've done other zoo installations, but I mean, unless one was in Dakota, probably the winter wasn't as big a factor, right?
But with Chicago, we have the extreme seasons. We have anything from freezing winters to hot, sunny summers. So the high brightness screens were going to be essential to this. So it made perfect sense that if we can get a high bright screen with our outdoor displays, we'd be able to combat the glare and ensure the content remained visible even when in direct sunlight. But one of the key things that we did with these kiosks were to make sure that they weren't going to be facing in direct sunlight, meaning they're not going to be facing directly east or directly west. Just put these little bit off axes in order for them to not hit the full glare of the sun. So they're the first kiosk that's right by the lion den faces directly north. The kiosk that's near the sale entrance is just off axis from the east, so it's never going to hit direct sunrise or sunrise coming from the east. And then the kiosk that's on the west entrance, that is facing directly south. So it kind of worked out in our favor. That's the pathways, but at the same time, that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be full sun bright, 24/7, but during the extreme days.
Right. And well, I mean, what about temperature, Rob? Does that factor in? I mean, I don't think anyone's going to the zoo when it's 20 below, but, and I'm not sure of their hours, but I would think on very cold days, the technology is impacted too, right?
That is correct. Each of our kiosks have displays that are IP protected,
Okay.
meaning that they are not prevented, but they are protecting the components in the displays against rain, snow, dust, as well as any type of interactions between wildlife and people. So we weren't very concerned about that because the media players were inside these IP protected areas with the displays with BrightSign players on the outdoor walls to the washrooms. Those displays were actually kept inside the ceiling of the washrooms. We were able to run the HDMI and Cat6 cable from the displays through the wall into the ceiling where the BrightSign players are kept, and those are being kept in a very climate controlled environment, hence it's the washroom. And then with the indoor visitor center, we were able to keep the media players, the BrightSign media players, directly behind the 75-inch Samsung displays, and still keep the displays face of that display close to the wall. So I think they were only 2.5 inches off the wall surface. So as you were walking beside the displays, the purple box or the mount system wasn't going to catch your attention.
Right. So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but can you talk to any unique challenges or lessons learned, whether by yourself or by the integrator during this project?
I think one of the issues that really came into play was the wireless connectivity. They wanted to use a wireless router in order to change or update content as needed. And one of the things that we ran into is because of the dense population of the city of Chicago, as well as the location where the zoo is at in the city, they were not getting that relative signal strength that they needed. So what was nice is during our discussions with them, not knowing this up front, we asked them, what might be best as a redundancy method. Go ahead and please not go wired as well. Run your fiber, just in case you may need it. So they ran that connectivity with the hardwire through for each of the kiosks, the 2 outdoor displays, as well as the indoor visitor center. But luckily, they only needed it for the outdoor kiosks. So right now it's as a backup for all the other displays. But right now the displays are running on the hardwire and being updated as needed. So it was one of those things of pre-planning really worked out in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, connectivity is key, right?
Yes.
Can't deliver any kind of message without that.
No, you can't.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Rob. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Judy, for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I hope we get you back to talk about other unique Peerless AV deployments because you guys do a lot of great technology. To our listeners, please subscribe to the Networld Media Group YouTube channel and catch up on all our past podcasts. Thanks again, Rob.